Good afternoon and welcome once again to the program Transforming Lives One at a Time. I am your host Dianne, and today we are continuing with part 2 of substance abuse. My guest, just as in part 1, is Behavioral Services Officer in the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection, Ms. Shermin Charles. Ms. Charles, welcome once again.
And thank you for having me back.
Yes, as we continue the conversation on substance abuse. But for those of you who probably missed last week, and of course you can head on to our YouTube channel, Transforming Lives One at a Time. You could subscribe, and of course you're going to see all the various programs there for your viewing. Okay, so last week we spoke about what is substance abuse, how can one detect when an individual is addicted, and some of the trends associated to substance abuse right here in Tobago. So we are going to continue. Ms. Charles, as you are well aware, a major concern is that substance abuse is becoming much more prevalent amongst our younger people.
Yes.
What is the pattern of substance abuse among secondary school students, and how is this area being handled?
Right. So we've seen an increase in reports of students, secondary school students getting in trouble when it comes to marijuana possession on the school compound. So they are bringing it on the school compound more. Previously, you wouldn't have had that. I mean, you would have had it happening, but it's a bit more frequently now. So we have students who are repeated, I don't like to say repeated offenders,
right.
but they're on suspension for more than one time on suspension for the same issue when it comes to having substances on the school compound. So we see that trend happening. What we realize is that they're not just bringing the weed, but they're bringing the grinder, they're bringing the paper, and we're just assuming that they're selling it. Okay. I mean, when you ask the student, they'll say, no, I just have it in my bag, it's for me alone. But we have the assumption that there may be situations where they're selling it on the school compound. So we have that happening as well. We have also seen vaping. A lot of students are getting suspension because they are found with vapes or they are found vaping on the school compound. Vaping is a new trend. It's a new thing. It's a new cool thing to do. They're not just having the nicotine liquid, but they are also including the marijuana oil, the cannabis oil into it as well. So those are two of the main trends that we see are happening on the school compound. And then we also have the edibles as well. Because it's very easy to sneak in edibles into school because it's like any other snack.
Cookie or candy.
A cookie, a candy or whatever. So the only time you pick it up is when a child falls ill at school. So they may be behaving erratically. They may start to vomit, they may start to throw up, they may start to complain about headaches, dizziness, and so forth. And then when you take them to the hospital, you realize, okay, they would have ingested marijuana. So those are the trends we are seeing where the secondary schools are concerned.
So what is being done to address it? Well, obviously from your division, because you can't speak about what the Division of Education is doing about it, so you could only speak about what you all are.
But I could talk about the Division of Education. So I want to applaud them because back in my day, years now when I was in Bishops, when you get suspended, you stay at home. And a lot of times what happens is the children have to stay at home without supervision because the parent has to go to work. What the division has implemented is this learning and enrichment center, where instead of you staying home on suspension, you go to that center. And I want to say that they're doing an excellent job in ensuring that while at the center, the students are not only continuing their education, but they have a lot of life skills where that is concerned. So it's anger management, it's conflict resolution, and one of those things we have is a substance misuse education. So normally they will contact us and they will say, okay, we have some students who appear for vaping, who appear for marijuana possession, and then we'll go up there and do targeted intervention or universal intervention with the students, just advising them on the negative effects. So I want to applaud the Division of Education for implementing that program, because I think it's very important, and I think they're doing an excellent job where that is concerned. So what we actually do is partner with schools in that regard. Okay. We are able to go in and do intervention, whether it be targeted intervention for children who are using, who are at risk of using, or we do the universal intervention where you do it for this entire school population, educating them about the effects of substance use.
Okay, so can we safely say that they have become, the secondary students, they have become more brazen?
Oh yes. Yeah, because please remember, they think that marijuana use is legal, eh? They had, and which is something that we have to educate, and I think the TTPS has been doing that as well, letting them understand where the legalities of marijuana use is concerned. But children at that age are very brave. They are not going to hide and say, I'm not using it. Yeah, I'm using. Who have plants home, where they get it from, and all those kinds of things. They're very brave with it. And I think it's because, as we said last week, it's just commonplace now. Right. It becomes as regular as going and getting some KFC down the road.
Yeah.
So everybody's doing it, and I'm just a part of the crew.
And the fact that you're allowed to have plants at your home, yes. It's like, okay, if I'm allowed to have plants in my home, I have a plant for a reason. I have a plant for a purpose.
Yes.
So what is the sense of just having the plant there? It means that I should use it.
But remember, the parents think the plant is for the adults.
Okay.
So remember, the parents would be like, yeah, it's okay. I've had parents who say, yes, I use, but he know he's not supposed to use because he's under the age. But then, I mean, you can't monitor your child all the time.
Of course.
I mean, you're not monitoring your parent 24/7. So you have given them access to something that they're not supposed to have access to. Okay. And so parents have to be careful, because that's actually illegal.
Yeah.
Having these substances in a space where your children can have easy access to, you can get arrested and charged for that. So they have to be very careful where that is concerned.
But I'm trying to get the rationale, because if it is that we are in a home and the parents have these trees on the outside, I mean, as a child, you have access to everything that is there.
Yes.
Is it that, because you can't monitor, as you rightfully say, you can't monitor your child 24/7.
Yes.
When you go to the washroom, they can go and get it and put it in their bags. So it's either we are saying that we want this or we don't want it. So we can't have our cake and eat it too.
Yeah. And I like how you put that. If it's that you don't want your child to use, then you need to ensure that you don't use, and you don't give them the idea that it's okay to use at any age whatsoever.
Right.
Right? We have to ensure, because parents will try to rationalize it's okay for me but not okay for them.
Yeah.
And I always say, especially secondary school students, they don't listen to you. They look at what you're doing and then they make their decisions based on what you do. So you can talk from now until, this is my weed. I've heard a parent say, this is mine. It's not for them to touch.
Yes.
But I mean, if daddy using it,
it means it's okay.
It means it's okay.
Because he's using it and he doesn't seem to be, everything seems to be normal.
Exactly. And that's the word.
Normal.
Everything seems to be normal. And because it's normal, then it means that it's okay.
And of course, the outside influences. So you go to school and you see your other friends sneaking away to do a little vaping or sneaking away to roll something. And then in the communities, you pass by the blocks and you see those guys again. So that is all you have been bombarded with. This is like, but this, if all these people using this thing, it has to be cool. I should try too.
And I always tell parents, when their children are in secondary school, their focus is pleasing their peers and not so much their parents.
Yeah, because peer pressure.
Peer pressure is important, and they're forming friendships, and friendships tend to be more important than your relationship with your parents.
Of course.
And so at that point in time, if they align themselves with the wrong friends, that is the path they're going to go on. So just imagine, they're aligning themselves with the wrong friends, and then when they come home, daddy is using.
Yeah.
Everybody is on the same path where this is okay, and this is okay for you to use. And so parents really have a big task, a large task, a great task where that is concerned, to ensure that, okay, fine, your friend might be doing it,
right,
but when it comes to you at home, no, this is what we stand for. You need to have something to counteract what is going on with the friend group,
yes,
and what might be going on in the community as well.
You know, it's very interesting because I just remembered something that I saw recently where someone was talking to a young lady, and she was saying, I use a lot of obscene language. My children are there and they know that I love to use obscene language, but they know they're not supposed to do it. And I'm like, okay. How?
I don't know. I think I don't understand. Let me don't say I don't understand the rationale, because we've always told that there are some things for big people things. There are some big people things. Stay out of big people things. And I think that is the mentality that we have now. But it's not working anymore, because the big people things is coming the everybody things.
Yes.
And so you're either going to have a situation where they're going to use, or as soon as they become a big person,
yes,
which is when they're 18, then they're going to use as well.
So what you're actually doing in many instances, I call it conditioning of your mind.
Yes.
It's like you're in a relationship, whatever kind of relationship, and let's say this gentleman is telling you, talking sweet nothings into your ear and stuff like that. When, let's say it's an online relationship, based on the information that is being shared between you both, you know, when you actually meet, you are actually playing out everything,
yes,
because your mind is continually being conditioned.
Correct.
And that is what's happening in the
yes,
home. That is what's happening in the community. These younger minds are being conditioned. Okay, mommy and daddy, they're doing it. They seem fine. They're still providing for us. Okay, so I could continue with that. I could step into that. And then my children can do it as well. And then that's why we spoke about the whole generation.
Yes.
So we have to think.
Yes, because
we have to think.
It's everywhere. Like I told somebody, it's the negative, I want to say the negative influences, but the acceptance of it is everywhere.
Yeah.
And I always say, these children can tell you that if you don't know, they will convince you that it's fine.
Yeah.
They can show you every single instance where it's fine, because they know what they want to do.
Right.
And their minds are already conditioned that this is okay.
Yes.
And so we have to, like you said, the conditioning is important. And that's why you have to start, you have to have a home. And when I say home, I don't mean the house, but a family, extended and otherwise, that really has a no-nonsense policy where substance use is concerned.
And it has me thinking about the importance of mentors, because especially this is very prevalent, most prevalent among our young men, our young boys and our young men. And many times you would have, you have your family, and they would be the members would be going to school, they're going to work. But apart from that, because a lot of these young children are no longer going to church, because the parents are not going to church. A lot of parents are not going to church. So sometimes they're sending these children, you go to Sunday school, but they're not going. You're not like, okay, we are going to do this as a family. But of course, when it's a family sports day and everybody's going, it's a family event at that point. But I'm thinking that we are not seeing the importance and how impactful having mentors for our young boys especially. We having it for girls too, but we tend to always focus on the girls more, because we don't want them to come and get pregnant.
Yes.
I tell you, this program is real, it's real. But that mentorship for the young boys, maybe it might be an uncle. It might be somebody who has a football club in the village, that they can be able to take them under their wings and say, okay, you will not be another statistic. I don't want to pass and see you park up under this with smoking this long. No.
Because the gang leaders are mentors.
Of course.
And I'm going to say this, they're doing an excellent job in what they want to mentor them to do.
Yeah.
So that's why we have all these gangs in Tobago now just popping up all over the place, because they know what they want to mentor these boys to do.
Yes.
And they're doing a good job. They're always there. They're always available to do what they need to do.
You could talk to them anytime.
They're always there.
Never busy for you.
Never. And so we have to be just like them, but be positive mentors that these boys need. And I think what is happening is that as a society, we've become very, I don't want to say selfish, but careful. Where, you know, let me focus on my children.
Yeah.
Right?
And you see that one?
Yeah. Let them parents deal with them. But I remember my grandmother said, the same boy that you don't want to fight up with is the one who's going to come and rob you when you
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to put a gun to your head and try to take what you have. And so we have to somehow bring back that community spirit where we're willing to be mentors. Because we have persons who could be excellent mentors, but for some reason, and I know sometimes it's just fear. It's just fear, and I could understand that. I mean, you go out there and you mentor this person, and then you're getting backlash from the parent, you're getting backlash from the community. And so we have to have a society where persons are more willing to mentor, and we as parents and as aunts and uncles and as family members are willing to have our children mentored by these individuals.
Yes, that's very, very important. Well, I want to go in, as we indicated in last week's program, when we look at it, there are no benefits to substance abuse. No benefits. So we want to get into a bit of the effects that substance abuse has on individuals in terms of physically, mentally, socially, financially. Because truth be told, based on what we are seeing, substance abuse affects every single area of one's life and their ability to perform at maximum level. So let's talk about that. We're coming up to a break, but we're going to start, and then after the break, we're going to continue. So in terms of physically, mentally, socially, financially, and any of the other alleys that you...
So when we talk about effects, we normally talk about the biopsychosocial effects. So biologically, psychologically, and socially. So I always tell persons, drugs affect every major organ in your body. Your brain, your lungs, your heart, your kidneys, your liver, And I guess I could go drug by drug and talk about the major organ that's affected. So we know alcohol, the major organ is the liver. The liver is what filters toxins out of your body. And your body basically says to you that alcohol is a toxin, which is why when you drink, you pee a lot. Because your body is trying to get rid of it. And so when we have a lot of persons going into kidney failure after extended use of the alcohol, we have some persons who would binge drink and then end up having alcohol poisoning. And so you have to be very mindful. I know you might see somebody and you see their eyes start to turn yellow as they're drinking and all these kinds of things. And so we always encourage, especially men, because we realize a lot of men, you need to check yourself. From the time someone comes and you realize they have an addiction to alcohol, I just say you need to go to the hospital. You need to check your kidneys, you need to check your liver, because something could be wrong. So that is the major organ that is affected by the alcohol. The tobacco we know is the lungs, and the marijuana as well. For some reason, persons think the smoke from marijuana doesn't affect your lungs as the smoke from tobacco. It may not have the toxins, because we know tobacco has those cancer-causing agents, the cigarettes, but it does affect your lungs as well. And then we also have with the marijuana, it's affecting your brain. So a lot of persons have memory issues where their brain are concerned. They're not able to remember what they learned in school. They know they're supposed to do something at their job and they're not able to remember those things. And then we have the caffeine and the cocaine that just basically affects your heart, because they are stimulants, which means that they race your heart. So we'll know persons, we've heard of instances where these young people will go on a cross-country drinking an energy drink. And then they collapse, heart failure, a heart attack, and so forth. So I always say your brain, your heart, your lungs, your liver, your kidneys, those organs are affected by your substance use. And so you need to be very careful because those are your life organs. You can't function well without them.
Of course.
I mean, my father, he had diabetes and he ended up dying from his liver failed and his kidney failed. That's from the medication. And so you have to ensure that those physical effects don't affect you, because when those shut down, you basically are not functioning as optimal.
Okay, well, we're going to stick a pin there and take a break, and we'll be right back. We continue the conversation on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
If you're wondering where to find top-tier quality tiles and products to refurbish or renovate your wall, floor, or pool, well, your worry is over. Come to D-Cells Tile and Ceiling Center, Store Bay Local Road, opposite the Bonnecourt Primary School, Tobago, where you will find porcelain, mosaic, and ceramic tiles of the highest quality guaranteed. D-Cells Tile and Ceiling Center also stocks thinset, grout, tile cutters, and yes, windows. Plus, a friendly smile and service that's second to none awaits you. So forget the hassle and get all the quality tiles you need right here in Tobago at D-Cells Tile and Ceiling Center. Call us today at 460-8802, 639-8281. Opens Monday to Saturday from 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the program. We continue the conversation on substance abuse. Well, just before the break, we were speaking about the effects that substance abuse has on the body.
Yes.
So just continue.
All right. So those are some of the effects as we spoke about the major organs. And then you have those cosmetic effects I like to talk about. So you have the blackened lips from persons who are smoking.
Yes.
You have the teeth not being as white as it's supposed to be. You have the red eyes as well. Persons, when they drink for extended period of time, they tend to smell that alcohol on them. I tell them, it's like you sweating the alcohol.
Yeah.
So you have that scent on you as well. And then for persons who are dealing up with the marijuana, you realize the tips of their hands the tips of their fingers tend to be very black as well. So those are some of the outward physical effects that you can see. And then one thing you might see is weight loss, because that's all they're doing. They're drinking or they're smoking. They're not eating. And so you may see that they start to lose a considerable amount of weight. Yeah. So those are some of the signs, the physical effects of the substance use.
Let's go mentally and socially, financially.
Mentally, I think the scariest thing about substance use mentally is that loss of inhibitions. You have no control over your behavior. You have no control over your emotions. You would see persons lashing out in anger at something that could be considered small. You see a lot of women would say that their husband or their significant other, when they're drunk, is when they start to get abusive.
Yes.
Because they're not able to control your anger or you getting upset for something. Another thing is that you're just making poor choices. You're not able to, your judgment is gone.
Right.
So normally, a big thing is, normally you know that you have to put aside money for food. Food is out of the way. You know that you have to go and pick up your child from school.
Yes, forgotten.
Out of the ways, get home some way. So you have that problem with them just not making good choices. And then what we realized, a lot of persons tend to have mental health issues. Which is kind of weird, because persons will say that they're using the drug for their mental health issues,
right,
but then the drug can bring on mental health issues.
Wow.
So you see persons will say, I'm feeling depressed, so I'll use, and in some cases, their use brings on the depression. We have persons who would trigger psychosis. So you have a drug-induced psychosis where they use that substance and you have a psychosis. And then when you're off the substance, you're fine. And so we have those situations happening. But I really want persons to be careful with the mental illness. Sometimes you're fine.
Yeah.
Your family member may have a trait of a mental illness, which is why I tell persons I am afraid to smoke. Because my aunt, I think, had schizophrenia. By that time, we didn't know what schizophrenia was because it was a longer time.
Yes.
Or we know that she was in St. Anne's and so forth. And so I'm always telling them, I'm afraid that I have that trait. And it triggers schizophrenia.
Yes.
And I don't want to deal with that.
You can't take the chance.
Thank you. And so we have to let them understand that psychological effect. You see persons go into a state of depression when they use. You see persons having to deal with schizophrenia, psychosis. You have persons who just can't control their emotions. Those are some of the psychological effects where that is concerned.
Wow. Socially.
I think this is the biggest one, but it's the one that is most, it's the one that we ignore the most, because sometimes when we tend to look at substances, we look at the effect on the person and the individual alone.
Yeah.
And it's more than that. We've heard stories of persons having to drop out of school.
Yeah. Leave their work.
Leave their work. Family put them out. Ending up in prison, legal issues. And we feel as though these are not social effects, but these are social effects.
Of
course. We've had instances where a family has to break up because one person is a substance user and is terrorizing everybody. And instead of staying there, the family has to break apart. We've heard instances of young boys who are very bright in school, doing well in school, getting up in substances. And by the time they reach third form, they can't function. And the next thing you know, they say they don't want to go to school. And they never return to any kind of skill training or anything, and they're just on the side of the road on the block.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, they pick up with a gang and so forth. We have known persons who have worked well. I had a cousin who was a teacher, but while he was a teacher, he was also using alcohol, and he just couldn't function. He wasn't in school, he wasn't going to school, and if he was in school, he wasn't going to classes.
Right.
And so you have all these social issues. One of the main ones is delinquency. You will have a good child. You train that child good, and they get involved in drugs, and you realize they're fighting, they're gambling, they're missing classes, they're running away from school. And so those are some of the social effects. And when we say social effects, we don't mean just to the family and close thing, but us as a community. We can talk about persons not feeling safe in their community anymore, because when you see a drug block, you also see a gang.
Of course, and you see guns.
And you're seeing guns. And so we have a situation where the community doesn't feel as safe because we have these issues compounded by the use of drugs. So those are some of the social effects we are seeing. My major concern has always been a community that doesn't feel safe, a community that was once safe. And your child could go on the road and play, and now you can't do that because you don't know what could happen. And so we have to be mindful of that where the substance use and the social effects are concerned.
And in terms of criminal activities, because when you have the drive-by shooting, we were all taken aback when quite recently, Tobago shot into the spotlight, drive-by in Tobago. How many murders? It was unheard of. It was unprecedented in Tobago.
And I can't talk for, because I wish the TTPS could do something like that, but I would love to know what link there is between those shooting and drugs. We often say there's a link between them and gangs.
Many times.
But is there also, what do those gangs do? A lot of gangs, they're running drugs. We know
everything is interconnected.
Everything is interconnected. And so when you see a place, unfortunately, that has a high precedence where drugs are concerned, it's also sometimes unfortunately a place where crime is concerned. We're not just talking about murder and stuff, we're talking about larceny, we're talking about assault and all those kinds of things. So we have to be so mindful because it can just compound and get into something worse.
And we're going to talk financially, because the first thing I thought about is that when money seems to be going in this direction, because I have heard of women, they know that their husbands are heavy drinkers, and they would go at the job site so that when they get paid, they will get their money for the children and to buy food, because if you wait for him to come home, he's gonna pass by the bars first.
Yeah, but the unfortunate thing is they don't do that anymore. So the money goes directly to the account.
Right.
So what they have to do is try to get the bank card.
Oh my Lord.
And if they try to get the bank card, then the men will be like, oh, you're trying to control me. I am in charge. You know, the men and their ego.
Yes.
And so women have to, I don't know, figure out a way to get to the money first.
Wow.
And then it has it in a situation where sometimes the women are the ones that are doing that, because we have a lot of women who have substance use issues.
Yes.
So the man has to try to get to that money first before it's spent out. And then that's why we have a lot of persons coming into the social services to get grants and so forth, because this one partner cannot manage the expenses, because all the expenses go towards alcohol or towards the marijuana or the drugs.
Wow. So, Ms. Charles, after all this information that you have disseminated, the question is, the big question is, how do we deal with this growing problem? What can be done to prevent substance abuse?
So the first thing is we have to promote no drug environments. It's hard because we've been so pro-drug as a community. We have to reverse it now. We have to start to make definite steps to let the community be viewed as a community that does not promote substance use in any form whatsoever. And so it has to start from, we've been saying this all the time, but it has to start from the home, and then it extends abroad. As a charity starts at home and extends abroad. So it has to start at home. And I want to encourage parents and family members that to ensure that their homes do not encourage substance use in any form. And I'm including alcohol in this, because the children have easy access to alcohol. And so we have to ensure that we don't promote that in our homes, and we don't promote that in our communities. Another thing I want us to do is to be more open with talking about it. I'm glad that you mentioned the churches, because a lot of time churches don't like to talk about it because it's considered taboo. But for us to get the information out there, we have to talk about it. We have to come to the realization that, listen, we have a problem. We have a growing problem that every year it seems to be getting worse. And we have to be open to talking about it, talking about drugs, talking about how it affects people. We have persons who are going through the effects and they don't want to say anything because they're ashamed or or it's taboo. But we have to be open, and we have to be out there talking about it and letting persons know, like, this is what is happening and this is what we need to do. So I think where prevention is concerned, that's what we have to do. But I think also we need to focus on the family, because drug use is not an individual problem, it's a family problem as well. And just like the family is the one that can make or break a person, the family is also broken when you have someone there who has substance use issues. And so we have to go back to, focusing on the family, reaching out to them, offering assistance, so that we can start that where intervention is concerned.
Yes.
Because we don't want a situation where one family member is using, and because we don't have intervention with the families, it passes on to the children.
Yes.
And so we have to have that intervention where families is concerned. So I think what's important is getting the information out there and ensuring that our environment, whatever space we are in, whether we're at home, at church, at school, in the community, that our environment does not promote substance use.
What I'm hearing is, I think what I've been saying over the past couple of weeks and months, the problem begins at home. It stems from the home.
Yes.
And the kind of information that is being shared via parents to the children, and then of course to the schools, because it starts home.
Yes. Because the truth is, there could be a possibility where you do well at home and your child goes out and be easily influenced. That is a possibility. But you want them to have that foundation still.
Yes.
Because it's easy to break something that doesn't have a foundation, not something that has a foundation. So you want them to have that foundation. And I always tell parents, you have to be open with your children. You have to be available to them. You have to supervise them.
Yes.
These children who are in juvie by themselves and are under the age of 18, I don't like it. You could get drugs and alcohol anywhere in juvie. So you have to supervise your children. They may not like it.
Yes.
I mean, I didn't like too much supervision when I was that age.
Of course.
But it was necessary.
Yes.
Right? And so the parents, I know it's a lot. And we're not saying that the parents, I mean, we're not saying that all parents are falling by the wayside, but we want to encourage them to continue pushing with their children.
Yes.
So when they reach on these negative influences, they have the means and the skills to really resist and to say
yes,
no.
that solid foundation.
Yes, very important.
And kudos to all the parents, the mothers and the fathers that are doing a fantastic job.
Yes.
Keep it up. Keep investigating. Keep speaking to your children when they come home. Talk to them. Have an idea as to what transpired at school. You know, don't just put them on the tablet and say, okay, hold on to this, I'm going and do this. Or, you know, you need to be able to spend enough time that you have that conversation so they are very comfortable in coming and speak to you. So someone would approach them, and because you all already have that kind of synergy, that kind of conversation, that you know, that you could come to me if anything troubles you at school, or someone probably wants to introduce you to substances, or what, come and talk to me. Let's talk about it. I might be able to tell a teacher, well, okay, this is what has been happening.
And I also want to say that there are some parents who will struggle.
Yeah.
And I want them to know that it's okay to seek help. And I want to encourage those persons who can't help to offer that help.
Yes.
Because sometimes parents struggle on their own because they feel as though there's nobody there to help.
Right.
So you have a child and you're struggling to parent this child for whatever reason. And there's no auntie or uncle or neighbor or grandmother to help, and you're alone struggling.
Yes.
And so we want them to reach out to someone for help, and we want persons who can to, you know, be that person that someone can come to for help. Of course,
and you don't have to be afraid, you don't have to be ashamed, because sometimes they would have it in their minds, maybe I'm the only person going through this. Trust me.
You're not.
You are not. You are not a lone ranger here. Yes. A lot more persons are struggling. A lot more persons are trying to maintain their sanity. Keep food on the table, especially single parents. Yes. So you are not alone. So whatever the situation, whatever the circumstance, you are struggling, know that there is help. You can get help. Reach out. You may reach out to someone in a church. You may reach out to a community. You may reach out to the police youth club. You may reach out to probably somebody who is in charge of a football club. Yes. Reach out. Let others know that you need help. Never be afraid to ask for help. Yes, never be afraid. In many instances, family members and even friends can become so distressed and broken, heartbroken, seeing their loved one literally spiraling out of control before their very eyes as it relates to substance abuse. What can someone do? What can a family member do to really reach out and assist an individual who is using substances?
It's just, because in maybe the last 2 weeks, I've had 2 family members reach out on behalf of their family member. And when you hear their stories, one mother has gone for their child and brought their child back home. And their child would leave again and go for their child and brought their child back home. We have another family member who had to take their family member's child because that family member was dealing with substance use, and the only thing they could do was take that child because they couldn't manage. And I want family members to understand that sometimes you can't do it on your own.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to addiction, you have to reach out for that person to get help. The truth is that person may not want help. So you have to reach out for help, because I always tell persons, you can't be sick or stressed and try to help someone.
Yeah.
Both of you might end up in hospital together, lie down next to each other, because you can't manage.
Correct.
And so I always tell family members, firstly, don't be too hard on yourself. Because family members will always blame themselves.
Yes.
And then somebody on the outside will always turn around and say, she ain't care about your child. Look what your child doing. She ain't business. I always say, be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Once you know that you have done all that you can, be kind to yourself and reach out for help. Not just for your family member, which is important, but you have to reach out for help, because those persons have gone through trauma, dealing with a family member, they've gone through grief, watching your child who you knew you grew up from young change into a completely different person.
Yes.
That is grief. And so you have to reach out for help. I always encourage them, don't be an enabler. You see, that's a lot of parents, because they want to, family members, they want to hide their abuse, they become an enabler. So instead of your child going to the rum shop, you will bring the rum home, because you don't want them to be outside to look bad. Instead of your son going out and begging people for weed, you will bring it home, because you don't want it to look bad.
Wow.
And so we encourage them, don't be an enabler. Don't do an environment that would enable the substance use, because sometimes they really had to deal with the consequences for them to come to the point where they have to know that there is a problem. And so, we have parents, you've heard of it, they will cover for their children when police come.
Yes. My son is a good boy.
Yeah, he's a good boy, not my child.
Yeah.
It's somebody else, whatever. And so don't be an enabler, most important. Make sure your environment does not enable their substance use. When you can't manage, seek help. Seek help and seek professional help. Very important, and don't be too hard on yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself at all.
All right, well, we're going to take another break at this time, and we will return. Stay with us.
If you're wondering where to find top-tier quality tiles and products to refurbish or renovate your wall, floor, or pool, well, your worry is over. Come to D-Cell's Tile and Ceiling Center, Tobago Local Road, opposite the Bonnecourt Primary School, Tobago, where you will find porcelain, mosaic, and ceramic tiles of the highest quality guaranteed. D-Cell's Tile and Ceiling Center also stocks thinset, grout, tile cutters, and yes, windows. Plus, a friendly smile and service that's second to none awaits you. So forget the hassle and get all the quality tiles you need right here in Tobago at D-Cell's Tile and Ceiling Center. Call us today at 460-8802, 639-8281. Opens Monday to Saturday from 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the program Transforming Lives One at a Time. My guest, Ms. Shermin Charles, Behavioral Services Officer in the Tobago House of Assembly. What advice would you give to a family or friend of a person who is an addict?
Seek help. I think seek professional help. I think a lot of times we think that we can deal with it, that we can help them. And essentially we could be making things worse, not just for them, but for you as an individual. And I always say that just like when your family member is sick, they have diabetes, hypertension, you will go to a doctor.
Correct.
Because you don't have the training or the skills to diagnose them and to give them the necessary treatment to deal with their issue. And that's why we always like to term addiction as a disease.
Okay.
It's a disease that needs to be treated. We wouldn't sit down, we wouldn't have our family members sitting down home with their blood pressure sky high or their blood sugar levels sky high and say, oh, let me see if I could fix it at home. We'll find a doctor.
Yes.
And it's the same thing that we have to do when it comes to drug addiction. Okay. Let them find professional help. Because there's only so much you can do. Yes, the support is needed. When it comes to treatment, it's very important to have that support, that social support. So family support, friend support, and so forth. But the person needs to have that treatment. They need to have that person who is trained and who has the necessary skills to, one, diagnose the level of their use, and then treat the use.
Well, it's very interesting that you said if you have a family member that pressure is sky high, you would rush them to the hospital. And in this situation with substance abuse, that's why earlier, I think, no, it was in last week's program, I spoke about, is it that we are slighting it and saying, well, this is just a little issue, but a little issue that has now turned into a monster, and we are now facing and trying to deal with the manifestation of that little issue that we called it.
Because when we're pre-diabetic, if you go with your significant other, your father, and they said, oh, you're pre-diabetic, you say, okay, daddy, you had to stop eat this, you had to stop drink that, you had to stop do that. We're ready, because you don't want them to reach it. And it's the same thing with substance use.
Yes.
Even at the substance use level, not even before the abuse level, even at the substance use level, you have to start to make steps to ensure they don't get to addiction.
Right.
And so that's why it's very important to get, if you realize your child is even at risk of using substances, you need to get them into some kind of counseling, some kind of community group, because a lot of times children use because they're just bored.
Yeah.
And because they don't have an alternative for their boredom or for their stress or for their anger. And so sometimes these community groups gives them an outlet to deal with the boredom, gives them an opportunity to learn how to develop coping skills, give them an opportunity to learn how to be disciplined and make proper decisions.
And you know, many times we tend to minimize the stress that our younger people go through, you know, because listen, we have to be real. There are a lot of children that are cruel in school.
Yes. I remember my father used to teach a primary school, and he was like, you know, children are not nice.
Listen.
He said, children are not nice. So you have to deal with, one, going to school and doing schoolwork.
Yes.
And I have a co-worker's son who is doing SCA. I look at the SCA paper, I said, if I do SCA now, I will fail. That's the thing, right? So they're going into high school.
Yes.
They have all these subjects, all this work, one. Then they have to try to fit into a friend group.
Yes.
And that's hard. That's stress on itself.
It is.
And then you have where the bullying and the peer pressure and all these different things. So children are stressed.
They are.
And sometimes we like to say, oh, you stressed? Wait until you get big like me and you have to pay bills.
And you have to pay bills, because that is all we see.
Yes.
The only stress that's supposed to be there is if you have a bill to pay. It's tea and tech and water and you have to pay cable bill and stuff like that. But we are not seeing the other little things where they may be telling them your nose too big and that kind of thing, and that stays with them until.
And they are not at the age where we have already figured out how to manage our stress. We have developed our stress management skills. They have not. They're now starting to learn. And so we have to be mindful that teenagers go through a lot.
Yes.
They go through a lot, and sometimes because they don't know how to, they're now still trying to figure out how can I deal with this situation, they turn to substances.
And then of course you have the fact of the issue of hormonal changes that's taking place in their bodies, and you know they know so many different things at play, and you're hearing your friends say this, and you're watching this on the internet, and so many things that bombard our young people that sometimes we don't even take seriously and recognize that it is affecting them. Because they're trying to find themselves too. They're trying to figure out who I am as a person. So you have to make sure that who they are is not aligned with substances. Indeed, indeed. Well, what kind of support systems can family members access as they treat with this problem? Who can they turn to? Where can they go for help?
So I know that our unit offers outpatient counseling.
Right.
We currently do not have an inpatient facility, an inpatient rehab facility. We are encouraging NGOs who might be interested to send in proposals to see how we can support you in getting a rehab up and running. So we do have outpatient counseling, and we also have links with rehab centers in Trinidad. So if it's that your family member really needs to have inpatient treatment, then we can link you with a rehab center in Trinidad to have that done. Yeah, and I know that most offices, most workplaces do have EAP services.
Yes.
So they can access the EAP services as well.
Okay, give us a reminder of the unit, name of the unit.
The Alcohol and Drug Abuse Prevention Program, and our contact is 487-6665.
And the location?
The location is at the Division of Health, the main building, the main office, and that's at Montessori Drive, Glen Road, Scarborough.
Wonderful.
Same complex with community development.
Okay, wonderful. Well, let's talk a little bit about the importance of having all hands on deck, all stakeholders, everybody to treat with this growing concern, because it is a growing concern.
It's a growing concern, and no one entity can deal with it.
Correct.
You have those persons who have to deal with it on the prevention side, which is the education and the treatment and the recovery. And then you have those persons who have to deal with the supply demand. And that is the TTPS, to ensure that the supply of drugs is reduced. And then we have the healthcare sector that has to come in and deal with those persons who are suffering from those physical effects. I mean, even a person who needs to detox from alcohol, they have to do it at the hospital because they need to be monitored. And so all hands have to be on deck. And I must applaud the TTPS. I must applaud the TRHA, because they are doing an excellent job where that is concerned. Not just the supply, demand, and the treatment, but also the prevention, getting the information out there. But we need everyone else to come on board. We need the families to come on board. We need the churches to come on board. We need our communities to come on board. We need our entrepreneurs to come on board. A simple thing like making sure that a 13-year-old doesn't buy alcohol.
Right.
As simple thing as that. So we need all hands on deck where that is concerned, because if we leave it to the TTPS alone, we're going to fail.
Of course.
If we leave it to ADAP alone, we're going to fail. If we leave it to TRHA, we are going to fail. So for us to really have an impact, everyone needs to get involved, and everyone needs to push this message that say no to drugs.
Yeah.
We used to use that slogan all over the place, and then they just
time,
stopped.
yes, it just disappeared.
If everyone was at say no to drugs, simple, say no to drugs.
That should be on the billboards.
It should be everywhere. I don't know where it went to. It's disappeared. But we have to start to go back to that core thing. Say no to drugs.
Because we are seeing the ripple effects.
Yeah.
It's affecting every single area of your life. It's affecting everyone.
And I always say, not because your child or your friend is not using means that you're not going to be affected.
Yes.
A simple thing like work. If my coworker is drinking and not coming to work, I have to do his work for him.
Of course.
Because he must continue.
That's right.
Right? If I'm a teacher in school and there's a student not using, I have to deal with his delinquent behavior. I have to pause teaching to deal with this delinquent child because of the substance use. And so we have to realize that it doesn't just affect the individual or their families or persons close to them. It can affect everybody. It affected Tobago greatly last year with all these killings. It affecting our schools when all these children have to be suspended for substance use. And so we have to understand that it's our problem. It's not just your problem or my problem. It's our problem, and all of us have to work together to try to fix this problem.
So even if my child is not abusing substances, it's still my problem.
Yes.
Because my child has to sit next to your child in school. My child has to work along with your child at school.
Yes.
My child maybe has to take a taxi that the person who is using the substances is driving. They're unsafe. So we have to look at it. We have to open up our eyes and see this in a new light.
Yeah, and we have to take ownership and not make it be like, all right, well, let them
stay over there.
Let them deal with that. We have to take ownership.
Yes, this is our problem, and we have got to fix it together.
Correct.
Yes, we have got to fix it together. What is one thing you would like our viewers to take away from this interview as we begin to wrap up?
So many things. But what's most important is that all is not lost.
Okay.
So I want to talk to family members of persons who are using. All is not lost.
Okay.
I know it feels like it's a throw your hand up in the air situation, like I can't do nothing. And like the mother said, the next thing I hear is the bad news. We have had instances of persons who have gone through recovery. Just before COVID, when our rehab center in Tobago was functioning, we have so many persons who went into rehab and came out and are still in recovery, because recovery is a long-term process. You're always in recovery, and they're doing successful at it. So I want them to understand that all hope is not lost. There is always, once your family member is alive, there is always hope that they can get over this disease, get over this addiction, one. And I want persons to understand that substance use is a problem that we all have to try to fix.
Yes.
I want us to really start to understand the repercussions of it, because we feel we put things in silo and we don't link it to other things.
Yes.
This is substance use. It has no link to the crime. It has no link to delinquency. It has no link to breakdown in homes. But I want us to understand that that could filter out into everything, and then it filters out to us. So I really want us to take ownership where prevention is concerned, and getting that message out there, and ensuring that we always promote a policy or an environment that does not promote substance use.
Yes. Well, I want you to speak directly into the camera. Speak to that young man or that young woman today who may be on a substance and they may be feeling trapped. Mm-hmm. They're just overwhelmed with so many things that have happened and is happening in their lives, and they feel as if this is the only way they can probably have an outlet. Yes. They feel trapped. They don't want this because they realize that the repercussions will be great. They don't have money to buy stuff because, speak to that young man or that young woman today.
So for me, I would say reach out for help. Like I would have stated before, there is always hope. Once you're alive and once you're breathing, there is always hope. And, it's okay to feel trapped. I mean, there are situations that you may be going through that would have caused you to use this substance, and you would feel trapped, because addiction is really like a trap. But I want you to understand that there is hope and there is help, and you just have to reach out. Like I said, you can reach out to the Alcohol and Drug Abuse Prevention Program. Our contact number is 487-6665. You reach out, and we can ensure that you get the necessary help and the necessary support that you need to overcome your addiction.
Well, I want to sincerely thank you today, Miss Charles, Miss Shermin Charles, Behavioral Services Officer at the Division of Health, Wellness and
Social Protection.
Yes. And I want to congratulate you on doing such a fantastic job today on these two segments that we had. And I want to really encourage you and encourage the team to continue doing what you have been doing.
Thank you.
And effecting change, transforming lives in your sphere of influence. So thank you once again for so competently handling this topic, and I'm certain we're going to have you back again at some time.
And thank you so much for having me, and keep up the excellent work.
Thank you, thank you. Well, viewers, this is where we leave things for today. This has been part 2 of the topic, Talking Substance Abuse. I would like to sincerely thank our guest again. And I must say that this issue of substance abuse is wreaking havoc in our society, and we cannot just sit idly by and allow a generation to go down the drain. So I'm saying that we have got to have all hands on deck so that we can be able to continue finding solutions to this problem. I hope that this program brought the much needed clarity that was needed, and as was stated before, prevention is always better than finding a cure. I am your host, Dianne. Remember, you can touch base with us on our Facebook page, Transforming Lives One at a Time, and our YouTube channel. Be sure to like, share, comment, share with a friend. Let us know, give us a feedback as to how this program has been impacting your life. As has become customary, I end with the definition of transformation, which is an internal shift that brings us into alignment with our fullest potential. Hey, we've got this.